desire to survive out of all the odds is what makes the humanity going ahead in terms of evolution. So as emergency managers, business continuity professionals, and ensuring pure safety, societal safety, it's a great pleasure to be part of this fraternity. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and EY the opportunity to participate in the summit and talk to you today. We have shared across brochures on each table upon the topic we're going to be discussing about. So may I request of you also to refer to those documents as we go ahead in the presentation. So in terms of the topic, so let me start by saying, how did E&Y come to this topic of saying let's build resilience for skyscrapers in terms of consulting services? So as you're aware, or as you may be aware, EY has been prior in terms of implementing business continuity across the region. We got around 50 to 60 BCP projects going on in the MENA region, and during one of those proposals, we had come across with this statistic that 25% of the disasters impacted organizations never reopened. So when the term of 25% struck as a statistic, we looked inside and said, does EY have an incident emergency crisis management for its offices? So it was a partner level meeting, and we said, well, let's call up the offices and check upon do they have it. They came across with first aid manuals, they came across with what to do in terms of firefighting, etc. But as you're always aware, emergency management or disaster management, business continuity requires a good communication aspect, a good actionable document. So we started developing a framework and said, okay, so we've given you severity matrix, the communication channel, the ability to implement and train the resources. So we want to see, okay, is it doable? Now we've established the incident emergency crisis for EY Dubai office, but is it doable? Does it achieve the objective of disaster management? That's when the nightmare started. So when we had a drill, we were establishing a skyscraper with 4 different floors, having various different response times. We found out that it was a multi-tenant skyscraper and had tables and objects all throughout the fire exits. It had the fire exit door locked by the security for security reasons that nobody can enter it from the other side. The lighting on the emergency aisles could be on only for a minute in order to save the power. So when somebody is evacuating on 12 or 13 or 15 floors, the light goes off intermittently. So these challenges led us to believe, where did we go wrong? How is it that in terms of an industry, in terms of the skyscrapers, we've implemented business continuity. We ourselves have delivered incident emergency crisis management plans to multiple corporate offices. But where did we go wrong in terms of saying, this can be executable according to the plan? So allow me to walk you through on what we feel is the challenges. So, as you're aware, I would say that disaster management could lead into an emergency or severity increasing rapidly if there is no particular plans as such. But what interested us was the fact that a statistic saying of the skyscrapers in the world, 28% of these are currently in UAE. And if 28% of these skyscrapers currently present, what is it that is being done to have a collaborated evacuation plan? What is it that is being done to execute an emergency evacuation for employees in a particular building or residents of a particular building? So we went into terms of saying, what is it that this field requires? What is the research that we have done upon existing scenario of the skyscrapers here? We found out that a lot of these challenges exist in terms of giving a capability of technology. I think the previous speakers have made a lot of emphasis on the technology's aspect for communication. It is not about giving the person a red button alarm to hit upon, but also inculcating the culture and the training to the person to hit it in the right time. So we started exploring automated call trees, automated softwares, partnered with these vendors, and a few of these vendors present today, to say how we can decrease the response time, how we can bring down the response time for effective communication. You know, one of the aspects that we created plans, and we had the plans in English, but there are multicultural residents in my particular office. and most of the staff couldn't know or couldn't be trained effectively because it was not bilingual, or it was not in a language they were comfortable in. So these were observations that came out of performing drills, but do we have solutions for them? In terms of business discontinuation and restored delivery, as in terms of what is the objective we want to achieve? Do we want to achieve in terms of escape routes at what particular time frame? It was very clear to have a top management or a top view on saying, what are we going to achieve and how much of the people's evacuation are we going to achieve out of these emergency management plans? The ISO 22301, as you're all aware of, gives upon these as a business continuity aspect of it. We talk about in terms of what is the level of operations I achieve for the delivery of key products and services. However, we also realize that there is no objective being defined on evacuation of all these people and placing out of them into a different sector. So if every time our office grows, or people grow, or the environment changes, these objectives have to be revisited. However, it's not being done right now. So in consideration of continuation with all these challenges, we came across with aspects of saying, okay, there's been an increase in megacities continuously. There's never been a stop. There's been business clusters where there are close placed buildings. In a time where you don't find parking, they have to find upon refugee or rooms or safe rooms of people to have mock drills and be assembled upon. And this, however, is not being given as an idea in terms of a city development or a skyscraper business park development. The evolution of community cities in terms of multiple different buildings residing together with multiple different utilities, be offices, residences, sports parks, IT parks, shopping centers, all being part of one environment. But however, not satisfying a single objective of saying, how are we going to achieve and enable these people with different responses, different awarenesses to say, let's get out at one particular time. Particularly for Dubai, in terms of the tourism being survived, in terms of the reputational impact that's taken place, a minor incident could also lead into a major impact. So how are we going to achieve it? We had a few key incidents looked into a global level to see, okay, so what has been the trend? Like there were previous speakers who spoke about in a particular sector of oil and gas as to how these came to. We looked at particular events in global level for skyscrapers. What has happened? So if you see it, most of these events are well known to people, but has there been a reduction in terms of the impact, or has there been improvement greatly in terms of how we can deal with these? Not so much. We moved specifically also into the regional level to see, okay, what is the awareness, given the mandates from the government sides, be it the NCMA, be it the liaison with 22301 to say business continuity has to be implemented. Now, you want to see how much of a specific decrease and what is the probability and likelihood of these events happening at the regional level. And the impact, however, hasn't been decreased as well. So what we did was to say, okay, so probably we think this is the best practice. We'll say to have a customizable, to be easily adoptable communication scale. I have one skyscraper, and in the event of all the tenants agreeing to take upon one aspect of communication implemented, a building management system, talking about my own personal devices, which we had showcased the presentation before, a communication has to be agreed upon. And it's not just one time, it has to be improved consistently. This, we feel, as in a drive has to be taken up by the building management systems, the security systems, the building landlords, given an aspect of saying at least in a year, let them please go across and review upon the tenants, put it in the contracts. So we have currently initiated a review in EY's contracts and saying all of our landlords should enable and liaise to help us conduct drills twice a year. And this has led us in terms of communication with Dubai Civil Defense as well, to say how they can help us out, how we can go ahead and see, okay, this is the reach of the floors. We are spread across in different floors of a skyscraper. What is the time that can help us rescue? What are the people's ability to get evacuated? how quickly and how easily can they be evacuated, and how we can communicate to them, communicate to them at the earliest for them having the best response possible. In terms of emergency evacuation as well, in terms of how many times do the elevators, we face elevator traffic every day because of the number of lifts and people and the floors we have. So how, in terms of an emergency response, are we expecting to have the plans executed properly for the number of people? So another observation from what we did. So we said, we calculated, let's take a minute for every floor that we're doing upon for climbing down these floors. Let's change it across the floors and say how much time will it take for coming down in terms of these emergency exits. But what is the reach time based upon the disaster incident happening? What is the reach time for coming to these emergency exits? What are the alternatives which we could do? And primarily, who is going to take up the sole responsibility of leadership? As showcased before, requires special requirements for leadership to enable effective evacuation and disaster management. So moving forward from the best practices, we feel, in terms of aspects of consideration in enabling, how we thought of improving it is, we're speaking to the building management services software portals to say how they can collaborate across in the building, how they can enable us in terms of nighttime if an emergency occurs, how can we stop at an incident level or emergency level without it escalating into a crisis level. What is the communication training that we could provide to one particular community so that they can be utilized and the culture of emergency management involved. So I'm glad to inform that EVA is going ahead in implementing its own disaster management across its offices in MENA region as an initiative, that the clients or the customers are also preached upon the requirement of disaster management as and when we go and consult. We would like to see and seek your support in making Dubai a safer place, and require a lot more conversation in this aspect. So please do feel free to reach out to the stall to see how we can take a association in building a better, safer working environment for all of us. Thank you for your attention and time. It's a pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you, Divakar.